And today, if I am correct, yes, this is a hadith I think many of us may already know. It's one that actually is one of the fundamental hadith talking about intention and talking about ikhlas, sincerity. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhum, reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that Allah Azza wa Jal said. So just as a point, when we have a Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying in a hadith that Allah said something, so it is Allah's speech, but this speech, we don't call it Quran. It's not part of Quran. Quran speech is one thing collected in the Quran. But a hadith of Allah's speech is called a hadith Qudsi. So it's a special type of hadith. Maybe you already know that, but for those that have not learned that, this is their opportunity. So this is Allah, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ saying something that Allah said. Verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered that the good and the bad deeds be written down. Then he explained it clearly how to write. He who intends to do a good deed, but he does not do it, then Allah records it for him as a full good deed. But if he carries out his intention, then Allah Azza wa Jal writes it down for him as from 10 to 700 fold, and even more. But if he intends to do an evil act and has not done it, then Allah writes it down with him as a full good deed. But if he intends it and has done it, Allah writes it down as one bad deed. And this hadith is muttafaqun alayh. This hadith is in both Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. So let's take a study of this, especially in light of the hadith we talked about earlier in a previous day about the two men who wanted to kill each other and both of them being in the hellfire. So we can understand this more completely. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perhaps as instructions to the angels or whoever is writing down the deeds, how to write those deeds down. This is the steps that they follow. So in other words, both the good and bad deeds are written down. And I think that's an important point because in Islam we have the book of deeds. We're going to be presented our book on the Day of Judgment. And that book is going to contain all of our deeds. And who can tell me which hand we want to receive our book in on the Day of Judgment? The right hand. We hope that we do. Because when you hold it in the right hand, it means it's something you're going to want to show off. But some people will receive it in their left hand. And it's going to be like you want to hide it. They're going to hold it behind their backs. As if they can somehow prevent it from being accounted because they know what's in it. They know that it's going to be a problem. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us our books in our right hand on the Day of Judgment. So, all the deeds, good and bad, are written down. And in fact, we have angels writing down our deeds. There are angels whose job only is to write down your specific deeds. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains how then these deeds are written down. So the one who has the niyyah, that intention to do a good deed, today I'm going to give $100 in sadaqah. And like he thinks he has it. Like, I have $100, I'm going to go give it in sadaqah. And he goes out and then subhanallah, he finds out his mother is sick. Well, he's going to of course take care of whatever, buy some medicine for his mother, but now he can't give the sadaqah either. On top of course, the benefit of helping his mother. He is going to have the intention of giving the sadaqah that he wanted to do in the first place. Because all that prevented him from doing it is that something else stopped him from doing it. He was going to do it. He had a sincere intention. Not only that, even if you don't have the means, but you're sincere. If I had $1 million, I would send it to help the orphans and the needy people in Gaza. If I had it, wallahi, Allah, if I had it, I would give. You don't have to say wallahi. Allah knows what's true and what's not. If you really meant it, if that's true, you get the reward. So my dear brothers and sisters, it's just a matter of our own honesty that is stopping us from getting a lot of reward. Imagine Allah gave you health more than you have, that Allah gave you strength more than you have, that Allah gave you money more than you have, that Allah gave you means more than you have, that He gave you family more than you have, give you any kind of a rizq more than you have now. Would you honestly and sincerely use what Allah gave you to do more good deeds? If you would, then make that intention. Oh Allah, I intend it sincerely. In your heart, just to yourself and in your conversation with Allah, say, oh Allah, you know that if I had more, I would do more for your sake. So if it would be good for me, then give me more. And boom, instant good deeds. All that you intended, Allah is writing it down for you. As for the one who intends the good deed and completes it, it's not one. Allah is not stingy. Allah is Al-Kareem. Allah is Al-Ghani. Doesn't need anything. Do you have your hand up? Oh, okay. Allah writes down the completed good deed anywhere from 10 to 700 and even more. Actually, Allah did not put a limit on how much He Azza wa Jal multiplies the good deeds, the reward for the good deeds. Subhanallah. As for the one who intends something haram, when I see Hisham, when I see Jaweed, I'm gonna spit back in his face like he did to me. And you're gonna do it. And before you do it, you're like, he's my brother though. And this is Islam. We don't do that. Even if I think he did something bad to me, doing something bad to him, what's it gonna do? I'm not gonna be happy. He's not gonna be happy. And I'm gonna get a bad deed. I'm not gonna do it anymore. By stopping your bad intention, you earned another good deed. If you stop your own bad intention, you earn a good deed. If you do the bad thing, it is written down. Is it written down times 10, times 700, or even more like the good deed? No. Just once. Just once. Allah only records the weight of the bad deed for its weight upon completion. So, my dear brothers and sisters, let's do some simple math here. A good deed that you don't achieve, but you intended it sincerely, one good deed already. And a good deed you have completed, anywhere from 10 to 700 or more. Minimum 10. Minimum 10 times the completed good deed has the weight of 10 good deeds minimum, as it's written down and recorded. And of course, that means how much it's going to show up on your scales of good deeds and in your book. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned these are how the deeds are recorded. Now, as for the bad deed that you intend, but you stop. Nope, it's not on this side, it's on this side also. So now 3 cases all end up in the positive for you. The only case that ends up in the negative is your bad deed that you completed and didn't stop yourself from its intention. That gets recorded once. So we've got what? 700 plus 10 plus 1 plus another 1. Some huge number here, and 1. How does someone enter the hellfire because of their deeds? You have to work hard, my dear brothers in Islam. In Islam, you have to work hard to get into the hellfire. Now, having said that, indeed, we have a lot of sins, my dear brothers and sisters. We have a lot of sins, my dear brothers and sisters. And we look down on some of them so that we don't recognize their weight. Indeed, Though sin is written down once, that doesn't mean it's not a hefty sin. The sin of, one bad word versus the sin of riba. They're one sin each, but they're not the same weight. So indeed, some people commit such dastardly crimes that the weight of the total weight of their sins, not by number but by weight, outweighs all this khair that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was wanting to reward you for. You worked hard to get into the hellfire, my dear brothers and sisters. I don't mean you, of course. But if you get into hell, it's because you turned your back on all the opportunities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from this foolishness and from this ignorance and from this silliness. But my dear brothers and sisters, we need to evaluate in our lives, what are we doing? Are we accumulating these good deeds that Allah has accepted because of our sincerity? Or are we accumulating bad deeds because of our intentions that are evil and the harm that we have done? And pay attention, my dear brothers and sisters. Many sins we don't recognize as such a big deal. Ghiba, backbiting. Have you been in a gathering where you've brought someone else's name up and it wasn't in a positive way? How do you know you're not safe from eating the flesh of your dead brother? We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from that. Have we done some financial transactions that we know there's a difference of opinion of by the scholars? I'm not going to sit here and make a fatwa, but we know deep down when we're engaged in something that is not beloved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everyone's case by case basis, but we know where we made some choices. Are we working in a business that is something earning us sins and our money and our rizq is coming through these? Are we in a business that harms Muslims? Are we in a business that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not love? Then every day you're earning not only the sins of that, but you're feeding your family from that. SubhanAllah. These things will accumulate over our lives, my dear brothers and sisters. The believer has to be vigilant that their daily life is not full of these sins that we look down on. We just kind of say, everybody else is doing it. Well, you know what? You say everybody else is doing it. We also know that hellfire has more people in it than Jannah. So it doesn't matter that you're going to be in the hellfire with a lot of people. The fire will not be cooler for you because of it. Whereas the people that make it to Jannah are going to find their space is even more spacious. Because there is a place in Jannah for everyone. But not everyone's going to make it. So that's going to be inherited by the ones who do. So my dear brothers and sisters, it's a reminder, not one to make you feel bad, but to see that the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very wide. And He's made it very encompassing. But it's on us to get it. And know that shaitan, our nafs, our society is not interested to push us in the direction of Jannah. We have to take that of our own initiative. We're going to have to fight and overcome the ignorance that we carry with us, cultural baggage, the little things that we do every day that are accumulating sins that we just don't pay attention to anymore. Listen, someone's going to give you advice 1, 2, 3 times. If they stop giving you advice, it doesn't mean that your problem went away. That's up to you to decide. So my dear brothers and sisters, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to purify our niyyah, to give us a good intention, to help us to avoid accumulating sins in the face of all the mercy He's given us to accumulate good deeds. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to let our scales be overflowing with good deeds. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to receive our book in our right hand and to not make us amongst those who would have to put the book behind our back. And we seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from all the evil of this world and the next. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the very best in the dunya and the akhirah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant relief to our brothers and our sisters all throughout the world from all of the evil plots and plans that are trying to be hatched against them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make them victorious in this life and in the next. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the very best in the dunya and the akhirah. If I said anything that is good, it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And if I said anything bad, it is from myself and from shaitan. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.